Hey lovers, welcome to Valentine's Day. I can't say that this is the first Valentine's Day where I've spent the evening watching Star Trek and talking about it with a couple of dude friends. So we hope that everybody had a great Valentine's Day. And even if you didn't, you're ready to talk Star Trek with us because the Star Trek Discovery after show starts now.
You're tuned in to AfterBuzz TV, the ESPN of TV talk. Now, let the buzz begin.
Yes, welcome to the Star Trek Discovery after show. I'm Christian Bladt. Flobito, say hi to the people.
How's it going, everybody? Flobo Boyce in the building.
And for those watching on YouTube, please make sure to commend Flobo on the amazing jacket.
Oh, yeah.
I can only commit to the T-shirt version of that uniform, and tonight it's a classic Trek T-shirt. But I'm very impressed that you have that. And Frank, you never wear Star Trek things on this show. I've noticed. It's always Marvel stuff. Usually Spider-Man.
That's true. There you go. I know how much it means to you. So,
well, I love Spider-Man.
Yeah,
you know, if there could ever be a crossover, Spider-Verse, Star Trek verse, you know.
I mean, we got halfway there with the X-Men. So.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. And Frank, say hi to the people.
Hi, people.
All right. So tonight, the Saints of Imperfection, a less convoluted title than last week. I don't feel that I needed to look this one up, but we're going to just start. Just overall general feelings. Flobo, what do you think of the episode?
Oh, I liked it. There's something that comes back from my CSI fandom called feature television. It felt like a movie in all the best ways. You had the ticking clock. We had the interplay of characters. Some people got things to do. It was awesome. I liked it.
What's your favorite CSI? It has to be the one with David Caruso, right?
Oh, yeah, Miami? Yeah.
Well, I guess somebody took the long way down. Yeah! Frank, what did you think of this episode?
I can understand where Phil was coming from because part of it's like, oh yeah, I'm enjoying the ticking clock nature is always good. The emotional return of a thought long dead character, but there's also what has bugged me about this subplot and stuff as we talk about it. It kind of came into the fore of this episode. And certainly some things that we've been waiting for this season were once again delayed yet another week.
Yeah. So in this episode, we see three characters that at some point we thought were dead. Now, it's kind of the caveat with Georgiou that this Georgiou was never dead. It's just the Mirror Universe Georgiou, which apparently not everybody knows because Pike's like, well, I've heard that she's retired. And Burnham's just like, yep, that sounds about right. Retired. Nothing more to say there, sir. And Tyler, we see again. And then Hugh being it's a big reveal, but it's not surprising because we've seen flashes of him already this season. And even when he died last season, I was like, I'm pretty sure they're going to figure out a way for us to see him again in some way. I thought we were only going to see him in the network. So I thought it was an interesting way that they came up with how to bring him back to us. In general, I thought it was a good episode, but to Frank's point, when they go down to the shuttle bay. And the way that the door opens slow, I'm like, there's no way that's Spock. Because, I don't know, I just know. They're just messing with us so much. Mm-hmm. And we've seen images of Spock on the show. We've seen him interacting with other cast members. So that's the extent to which we know that Spock will be on this. But it's like, just not every week. It's definitely starting to get annoying.
I agree with you. I totally understand the whole Spock thing is being drawn out. But I felt like this episode made that episode 3 aside make a little bit more sense as to why they stopped the ongoing plot and went with Section 31 and how they're building it up. So, like, it was definitely the best consolation.
It definitely paid off what was the worst episode of this series. not of Star Trek series, but of Discovery. And again, Frank, you missed that one. There was so much that you didn't get to talk about the Klingon baby.
Oh, but yep. Just
Now's a chance.
hold that little head.
Yes. By the way, probably going to see him again. So there'll be a chance. Yeah. So it did pay off that aspect of it. But yeah, and in general, I do think that this was a good episode. There was actually some really interesting stuff, which we'll talk about. But I'm just, it's like, you know, as Tom Petty said to Stevie Nicks, stop dragging my heart around.
That's
Please,
true.
Just say I don't need it. You know, what were you gonna say?
Does any of this? We get these past couple episodes a little bit more Section 31. Does this get you excited about a possible? The Giorgio spinoff. Are you more excited about learning more about?
Well, I was
31?
always interested by the idea, and yeah, this definitely has me a little bit invested because you know we're getting to see some characters and we're getting a feel for what it's going to be like. So yeah, it's actually making me feel like, I feel like we're going to get this a lot sooner than maybe we thought. We will probably get it before the Picard show. So. Yeah, I mean, we could actually have that show for us. And what about you, Flobo? Because again, this is the only Star Trek series that is on your watch list.
That is true.
So this would have to be a second one that you would have to be like, okay, sure, I'll watch the Section 31 show.
Yeah, that's the thing. Hearing it teased in other episodes, I go, oh, okay, what does that mean? And I'm a big Green Lantern fan, so I try to find that little, like, are they Alpha Lanterns kind of thing? What's the analog? But seeing this episode and having the interaction between the section and Starfleet, and even being told what are some of the ground rules of what they can and cannot do, and court martial is still a thing, gave me some of the rules. And I'm actually more excited now about a possible second series featuring that team than I was 2-3 weeks ago, even a year ago.
By the way, there are 2 different comic book series of Star Trek and Green Lantern.
Yes,
so
yes, they are.
Just letting you know that they're out there.
I do have them.
Yeah. Okay, great. I have borrowed them, and it's kind of fun.
Because I equate this to almost like watching Sicario, where Section 31 is kind of like Josh Brolin and his gang of guys doing what they need to do, which isn't always nice, but is perhaps necessary for our country to maintain its objectives, its freedom, whatever it needs to do. I don't know. Part of me, it seems like every time we see somebody from Section 31, they're that just a little bit less than the Snidely Whiplash of. They throw out an old reference there. Yeah, just like
could we have some Muttley?
So it's just like, oh, man, is it always just going to be these? I mean, maybe that's what you want. Do you want the Sicario version of Star Trek, or do you want to see some people that might be trying to be decent people but are put in morally complex situations?
Do you want more broken toys?
I don't know. I did like them. I did like when Tyler basically just hits the bat signal, and it's like, "Yep, we're gonna be right there." Boom, there. It was just and Pike was just like, "What did you just do? Like, what happened? How did you even do that? Like that. All of a sudden, we have reinforcements." So yeah, I think it's. I agree that it's a little bit of a clash, and while it was interesting for this episode, I don't know. I feel like it's going to have to come to a head when we ultimately do get to see Spock, assuming it's in this season that we actually, if he doesn't just show up in the last episode, he's just like, hey. And that's it, and then it just fades to black with him like walking off the shuttle.
Oh, that'd be terrible.
Well,
it would be terrible. By the way, yeah.
I mean, I guess going back to the Sicario reference, but if you look at the first Sicario film and then Day of the Dead, I feel like the first one works a little bit better because you've got Emily Blunt, and she's kind of our person in. She's somebody that's outside the organization.
Mary Poppins?
Yeah. Oh, there you go, yeah. But she's kind of like, what is going on with this? Yeah. So she's that person that you can still see is like just kind of overwhelmed by everything she's stepping into. And the second one is just everybody in that world already. And you feel like, well, there's really no good guys in this. I'm just watching a bunch of... So I don't know if a series of... I think this Section 31 series would need somebody like an Emily Blunt-esque character, somebody that you could actually feel like you could care about, as opposed to all these other characters we've met so far. They're like, I don't think I really care about these people. Yeah.
Well, I don't think it wouldn't be Giorgio. It wouldn't be Tyler.
Yeah.
I think that they're both compromised in a lot of ways, and I don't know that it's this Leland character who we got to meet this week. At least I think we met him this week.
He was there last week.
Yeah, okay.
The Klingon episode.
As soon as I said it, I'm like, wait, actually, we did see him, but factored into it a little bit. This episode starts off with something we've seen before. Burnham running through the ship. This is not the first time we've seen that.
Yep.
I was like, somebody loves that. You know, they love to film it. Maybe she loves to run. Yeah, I don't know what it is.
For a second, I thought it was the wrong episode because remember that was when Tilly was running. You're like, wait, no, there's somebody else.
I did think for a second because I've had that happen just because of the way the app is. I've sat down to watch the episode that we'll be talking about that night, and I'm like, oh wait, this one's from season 1. Yeah. You know, just because sometimes it's like shown there, and I'm like, oh, that must be the one to watch. So it's well, that's just my problem though. I did think that the explanation for where Tilly was an interesting one. I always like look, this is science fiction, but I do like the way that they sometimes try to make the science at least make sense in this universe that they live in. You know, it's like, okay, so the spores kind of did like a transporter deal with the cocoon. Are you with us? Oh, you are? Great. We're going to go from there then. I thought it was an interesting way to explain how, you know, it had been at least a few days. And it's like, oh, no, Tilly's fine. And I did like the fact that she, as infuriated as Tilly was with the spores that we've come to know as May, she's like, oh God, I have to help you. What do you think that says, Flobo, about Tilly as a person? That she just in that moment realizes, I have to help you.
Right. The fungus could not pick a better host, right? I feel like had it been Michael, it would have been more of a some sort of, I don't know, it's the mission, right? But the fact that it appeals to Tilly's heart, and she gives nothing but heart, whether it's her captaincy school or whatever, it was definitely, for me, like the perfect story for her, right? Being able to step out of her shell, being the annoying person in season 1, and being the person who just wants the job in season 2. Now she has something she actually strives for and understands part of her mission. So.
I don't know what you think, Frank, but I liked that. You know, she's like, no, I'm going to actually do this for you. But then when Stamets and Burnham show up, she could be like, oh, yeah, I know I said that, but bye! You know, so I like that she, and Burnham and Stamets, like, they got it. Like, okay, yeah, this is what we do. This is why we joined Starfleet. We have to help these spores, even though they're eating our ship at the moment.
Yeah, I feel like my part of the problem with this episode was, and this storyline, is there was just a lot of vagaries that over the 3 episodes that was taking place, where if people would just like, let's just take a moment, tell each other everything that we know, and then let's figure out a solution to this. And yet nobody would ever do that, and things just got delayed and prolonged. And then it's like, we could have dealt with this whole thing that May wanted back in the first episode that she appeared, but nobody. It was just everything was just kind of brushed aside. She gets sucked out. Tilly doesn't want to take a second to kind of figure out what the deal is. The second episode, nobody wants to take the deal to try to communicate and figure out what the deal is. And then this episode, she's still like, I don't know. So that kind of frustrated me.
Yeah, I mean, it is frustrating that this storyline has dragged on for 3 episodes. And in theory, we're done with it now. But, judging from what we saw of next week, I think we have at least moved on for a moment. The commercial, they didn't tease Spock, so I'm just going to hope that at no point in the episode they're like, wait a minute, there he is. Oh, no, that's not him.
It's a Carmen Sandiego.
That's a guy named Stock. We're so close.
I mean, I assume after this episode we're done with the jump drive. I feel like there's really no reason that we should be going back to it.
I'm going to assume that there's a scenario where they're going to have to use it at some point, but I do agree. I mean, I think that as the season started, they already weren't going to use it anymore. But Pike was like, let's just see what happens. So what's going on in the chat?
So
Flobo?
Shout out to Stress Free K and Beta Arnus. We're talking about Spock and whether if he was going to show up or not. And it seems that the over-under is episode 7. That we're actually going to see. We're in episode 5 this week, right? So
yeah, so not, and it doesn't look like he's in next week,
right? So episode 7 may be the actual first time we see the face and body of Spock. What do you guys think?
And I don't know if there's a hiatus planned for this season.
Yeah, because and I looked this up before last week, and now I forget, but I think it's a 14-episode season. So an episode 7 would kind of be a logical break.
Yes.
And if that is a hiatus break, that would definitely be the episode where we saw him. Mm-hmm. And they'll be like, well, well, we'll be back.
More teasing, right?
Hang
More
around.
teasing, yeah.
Before we move on, I know that Frank has a very important holo message to share with each and every one of you.
That's right. Yes, fresh from Starfleet Command, everybody. The Admiral wanted me to make sure that you want to know that we want to send our congratulations for thanking you for making us the ESPN of TV Talk. And for us to continue to grow, though, that we are needing your help. So if you're on YouTube right now, hit that thumbs up button and subscribe. And if you're on iTunes, give us a 5-star rating.
5 stars.
But no matter where you are, leave us a comment so you can get involved in the conversation. Like Stress-Free K, you got involved in the conversation. So yeah, that could be you. Yes. So being part of AfterBuzz TV has meant so much to all of us. So we truly appreciate you supporting us and doing what we love. And now don't forget to tell your friends and keep enjoying our shows.
I alluded to it a little while ago, but there is an interesting moment between Pike and Burnham where, he's not an idiot. He's like, okay, something doesn't add up here. And he's not quite sure exactly what it has to do with Georgiou, what it has to do with Tyler. It's interesting when you think about that pretty much everyone on the ship, except the captain, knows about the mirror universe and knows that this Georgiou is actually not the one from this universe that he would know from the Academy. This is actually a different person. This was an emperor. I don't know. I think it's an interesting dynamic. Let me know what you think about that, Frank, that the captain is the only one that's in the dark on this.
Well, and of course, our chief of security from the Enterprise.
Okay, that's true.
I didn't realize that was her position last episode. Like,
just sitting around in the in the cafeteria with coffee. I thought that was her job, but
nope.
I mean, when you think of great heads of security in Star Trek like Tasha Yar, they're kind of good for that sort of thing.
Yes.
But anyway, so give us your thoughts on that dynamic of Pike being the only one that doesn't know the truth.
What I'm kind of interested in about this season is that Pike is starting to, because I figured that conversation with him and Burnham leads me to believe that Burnham is going to film it at some point what the real deal is. Right. But I also feel like this episode, like Section 31, the Mirror Universe, Pike is going to be this repository for all this knowledge, and then I feel like the show is treating him like it's great that Pike knows all these secrets because he's dead. In the menagerie, he goes off, and that's it. He's kind of out of Starfleet. So it kind of writes up that he can know all these things, but he's no longer on the playing field because he's taken out.
And by the way, it's not that he dies. It's you could ask him about these things, and his light will either blink once or twice. So if you ask him yes or no questions, you could actually interrogate him on it. What do you think about that, Flobo? If you're on that ship and you have the jacket, so you could just beam up today,
space,
and the captain's the only one. Would you feel any sense of like, I know what Starfleet wants. This guy's a captain. I think he should know some of this stuff.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And I think this exchange was really more about a character beat between the both of them. I write in my notes week in and week out that I really love the chemistry between Pike and Burnham. I feel like Lorca would have handled it a little differently. But yeah, you have Pike here being like, look, I know something's wrong. I can pick up on it. No one has to spell it out for me. No one has to spoon feed me. I need some answers, but I'm going to give you the latitude to tell me in your own time. So for me, it was like, okay, I know more about this Pike fellow, this old chum, and what he's good at and what he wants the most out of his crew. So,
and I did like how at the end of it he goes, you tell me in your time, but don't make me chase you.
Yeah,
right, exactly.
Right. Yeah, I did. Yeah, he's like, all right, so right now's not the time. I get it, but we're gonna make the time. And I thought it was interesting to see the different dynamics Burnham had with first Tyler, who seems to legitimately have her best interests at heart in terms of Spock. And then Georgiou, and every time that we see Burnham and Emperor Georgiou interact, it's it gets a little it's not like actively hostile, except of course for the fact that she continued to have her phaser pointed at Burnham continued to point her phaser, and of course Pike doesn't know anything about this backstory. He's like, dude, what? Would you put it down?
It's a long story.
You saw we all put it down, right? Anyway, so I think it's interesting to kind of see those dynamics. And of course, Flobo, at the end of the episode, or almost the end of the episode, Georgiou's like, are you going to trust me? And I think Burnham's got to be like, no.
Right.
I am not going to trust you.
Hey, I think Burnham just, and a lot of times you've seen this in a lot of episodes too. She's always a slave to her own morals sometimes, and she's really about to have her compass challenged by someone who thinks is her friend, and it's totally not. So I always think that's a cool dynamic there. But ultimately, I have a feeling there's going to be an uneasy alliance on some level where she has to compromise some things.
I mean, what this tells me in that exchange is that in a later episode of the season, she's actually going to have to trust her, and maybe Georgiou's going to surprise us and actually not kill Spock. Well, is that going to surprise us, Frank, if Spock doesn't get killed years before he meets Jim Kirk? But so.
Well, I mean, but though we are throwing in the possibility of tachyon energy, so
yes, tachyons.
We could be throwing time travel into this story.
Yeah, I mean, we already did alternate dimension. So, yeah, it's true. When we've gone through mycelial networks and brought characters back from the dead multiple times. So, yeah, why not? But I think that interaction, look, the idea of putting Georgiou and Tyler into Section 31, I do think is very interesting. And I think that there's a lot that they can do with it. Frank, do you have faith in the writers of Star Trek Discovery that they're going to make you care about these two people being part of Section 31?
Well, I figure if they're going to launch a show about it, then they are going to work very hard to make us try to care for these and be invested in these characters. I mean, I feel like Michelle Yeoh does a lot of the heavy lifting. So it's like if you like Michelle Yeoh, you're already one step into buying this premise and that character within the show.
Yeah, and I think it has to, you get the feeling it's fun for her to play this version of Georgiou. Not that it probably wasn't fun to be, a Starfleet officer in the first 2 episodes of season 1, but to play the Emperor and then the Emperor pretending to be, our Georgiou. I don't know, you just sort of watch and you're just like, I bet she's having fun.
Oh yeah, she walks in, wears all black, eats apples really slowly. It's awesome.
Yeah, like literally like the Wicked Queen from Snow White. Right. With the apples, just having some apples.
Don't mind me. Yeah.
The only thing
I'm sorry, did I drop my forbidden fruit? What were you going to say, Brian?
The only thing that bugs me about this, again, because it's set in the past. So basically, I worry that the Section 31 could be all these operations that they do that will be like, this really went on behind the scenes to make these things that you saw in the original series come to fruition. I'm like, I don't want to see that
so
stuff.
Your theory is that Section 31 is going to be like the musical Wicked.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, wow.
It's like all this stuff in The Wizard of Oz, here's what's really was going on at the same time.
But she breaks into popular.
Mary Poppins, Wicked.
Hey,
all these pop culture references
we cover a lot of things. Hey, look, if the crew of the Starship Discovery know David Bowie, I think it's okay for us to sprinkle in
that really
a spoonful of sugar. Do you think? The fact that everybody knows, I mean, is Ephraim Cochrane listening to Roy Orbison? It's a very specific reference, but Frank knows what I'm talking about from First Contact. It's just like, just make up some music. We're going to be okay with it. Other than Picard playing the flute, which is one of my favorite memes that goes around. We have like a non-story about Picard before we go. I don't know if you guys have seen the clickbait headline, and I certainly clicked on it and was very disappointed. We might just have a title for that show. But stay tuned, because there's not time to get to that yet. What did you think? Well, let me put it a little differently. Did you have any trouble buying this? Okay, so we're going to go half into the Mycelial Network, and we're going to be half out of it. And you're going to be able to use your communicator. You're going to be able to talk to the bridge. Everything's going to be able to work. And I don't know, I guess I thought of it more like, more pop culture reference, like in Stranger Things when they're in the Upside Down. And it's like, yeah, it's actually not the same, but you're kind of in the same place, but it's different. I thought it would be at least a little different. But it's like, I thought we would have that thing of Stamets and Burnham, like, wait, I think I hear Tilly. No, I don't. No, maybe I do. No, she's just like, Tilly, hi, how about a hug? It's just like, I don't know. I thought that it would be a little bit more of like crossing over to something. And you know what, maybe that's just for the expediency of the episode that, you know, this was one that was 52 minutes and not an hour and 17 minutes, you know, so they just needed to kind of streamline it. But what did you think about that, Flobo? Did you think? Yeah, go ahead.
When we were talking about going in between jumps, I thought they'll be in this space that they'll be in holding themselves, but there'd be no outside interference. I was thrown when Sector 31 showed up to do the anchoring, and I was like, oh wait, so they can see, but they're part of it, but they're not in, but they are in. And I guess it wouldn't be the way I would have done it. I'd probably do it more along the way you're saying it, of being in this weird astral plane, almost like the quantum space or something like that.
Yeah.
And finding some way to pull out of that. That was just me personally.
What did you think, Frank? Did that work in a Trek science sort of explanation of interdimensional travel?
Sure. I mean, as much as any Trek science always works there, I mean, you have to go buy into it. Certainly the trailers from last week made us all think like, all right, we kind of knew something needs to be happening in the Mycellial Network.
Sure, absolutely.
And this the search for Tilly was going to be the main thrust. But when we see the majority of the episode, at least at the beginning, sets up this whole Section 31 and Giorgio and the search for Spock, I was like, man, it's a while since we can still have to do the Tilly stuff too.
Yeah.
So it made me realize like, okay, this is not going to be a huge thrust of this episode. So for them to conveniently land right where Tilly happens to be so that she can just walk right back into Discovery.
Well, at least Stamets was like, well, now that I know what I'm looking for, let me just look for something that's like this.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that, I don't know. Maybe I'm asking for the episode to have been a little longer while they, you know, feel their way around, and it probably wouldn't have helped the story. But it was my thought. I was like, man, it is so easy to just kind of stay half in, and easy in the fact that, you know, after, I don't know, it seemed like only in 20 minutes there was like 78% of the hull had been eaten by the spores, which, you know, no problem later in the episode. So that's all right. I mean, you know, we'll be fine. But I mean, it's like the hull of a starship. You would think that might take a little while to repair.
Yeah, you would think next week, yeah.
Considering the fact that the Enterprise is in like dry dock, and, you know, it's like, it's going to be a long time before, you know, so. But they're like, no, it's fine. It's just spores. You know, you just hose them off. You know,
Barnacles on the side of the ship.
It's like if you get pollen on your car, you just, yeah, we're gonna be all right.
Well, but for the Mycelial's point of view, when they keep telling Tilly, it's like it's a monster. There's a monster in here. To find out, you know, that it's just our boy Hugh.
Yeah.
Just one little soul thing. It's also wondering like, how much damage was he doing? I mean, I certainly knew he was protecting himself.
He had bark on his skin, so obviously.
Yeah, but it was like I was expecting some huge entity.
Were you expecting an actual monster? Because I was at first, and then when they went, I'm like, oh no. At first, I actually thought she was talking about Stamets. And is like, oh, is she going to try and tell Tilly she has to kill Stamets? That'll be interesting. And then it was like, well, no, it's, you know, just the doctor.
I saw the red lights. I'm thinking Angel. Oh, right. It's
I'm not buying into the Angel. You know, it's like enough of that already.
Right, I'm just done with it. I'm done.
I know it's coming back. You're right. Yeah. That would have actually been interesting if they had managed to tie those two stories together. But they clearly don't want to tell that story yet.
Till later, yeah.
They're like, interested in the Angel? Keep watching.
Yeah, Pike saw some pictures. Next week.
Again, he's always looking at those pictures like, all right, let's move on to the next step. Stop looking at the photos.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
Yeah.
The chat's all about Hugh. We talked about before the show even started about how Hugh was all scruffy and Adonis looking while he was out there slumming it in the Mycellial Network.
I mean, I guess... you know, I guess there wasn't a lot to eat there, you know. So, and I wonder, you know, they didn't really talk about this. I wonder, does time pass in the same rate there? You know what I mean? Like, for him, how long was he in there? Was it less time than everybody's been on the Discovery? Is it longer? You know, and maybe that's something they'll explore in the weeks ahead, because obviously. We're going to have to assume everything's not going to be perfect with him, you know, for when he comes back. Or if it is, it'll be really uninteresting, actually. Just like, you remember that character we killed? Yeah, he's fine now.
Yeah,
he's just right back. You know, it's like you might as well just been like, so this is Hugh's twin brother. Yeah, he's going to be just like him. Yeah, you know what? He's actually romantically interested in you too, Stamets. Anyway, I think that I did want to mention just a moment in the Mycelial Network where Tilly is helping May, and she's obviously very scared for whatever they're facing. And she says, "I'm holding a Type 3 phaser rifle, and it is more powerful and generally larger than the Type 1 or the Type 2, which I guess is why they call it a 3." And I was just like, oh, that's a really Tilly moment where she's like trying to be tough, but she's just like, she's just tillying away with just awkward conversation with a monster that she might have to try and shoot.
That's command track talking right there.
Yeah. Yeah, just obviously she is definitely ready.
I got to give it up though real quick for Anson Mount though. Week after week, I really enjoy his performance as Pike. And when he does that moment about, and he talks to the rest of the ship about why they're going to rescue Tilly.
Yeah, that was actually one of the things that I took a note on. I really liked that speech. When he basically. He says that this is why we do what we do. Like this is where we have to go. I was trying to find my note, but I didn't. But I think he does a great job. And again, as we've talked a lot about, like Christopher Pike is a character who we've seen a little bit, but he's not well fleshed out. So you don't have to hold too much to what we've seen before. So I think that he does a great job. An even more impressive job than he did on the Inhumans as Black Bolt.
Would you say that Pike is your agent of the episode, or he's your above and beyond the Call of Duty?
No, I think it has to be Tilly because of the fact that she could have run a couple of times and just been like, yeah, I don't really care about the spores. You guys can do whatever you want. And against her best interests, against the fact that she was actually terrified the whole time. So I don't know. I think it was Tilly. But what did you think, Flobo?
I was actually going to start with Pike. That's why I wanted to see if Great Minds think alike.
Yeah, I mean, he's just like, he makes the point of like, well, she would do that for any of us, and everybody's like, oh yeah, definitely. Right. So he's like, yeah, I mean, that's my kind of Starfleet captain. I don't know about you, Frank. He's like, yeah, sure, I'm gonna just leave the ship in there. I like that it's like the explanation given by Stamets is like, yeah, so we'll be destroyed in an hour. Oh, okay, so you need an hour? I would be like, yeah, 40 minutes and then we're out. Yeah. All right, like not 41 minutes. All right, I don't want to even get close to the part where we get destroyed. He's like, yeah, an hour's good. 61 minutes. Don't worry, we're good. What do you think about Pike? I mean, we've talked a lot about, he definitely seems to be more from the Jim Kirk mold than the other Starfleet captains that we've seen. Even Jonathan Archer,
Yeah, which I mean, I guess almost makes sense to see that kind of closeness between him and Spock, and how easily Spock was able to make that transition to him and Kirk. Sees a lot of common elements, but also something a little bit different that he's able to lock onto more with Kirk. But I feel like this has only enhanced my appreciation for Christopher Pike. I mean, because it's more like, other than those couple episodes, the original pilot and the Menagerie, it's like any other stuff I've read about that character has come through novels. So It's been great to see a more visual, fleshed out version of him, and it's just enhanced my appreciation for the character.
It definitely hits the balance of being the cowboy, but then still understanding the rules. I think one of my favorite line, and I actually quoted it here, is when Mike said that Mike said there was a complication on what was the mission. He's like, we won't survive complications, Commander. I thought that was so cool that he was so quick on the hip to say it, but he's still understanding the amount of risk and danger going in the mission. So,
and I like that he's not his boy in Section 31, his old pal. That
Leland.
Yeah, he doesn't roll over. He just he still stands up. And even though they've got to have a little talking to by the Admiral at the end of the episode to work together, still feel Pike still.
Leland did actually have one of my favorite comebacks in the episode. Pike talks about how that there are lives at stake, and Leland's just like, "There's always lives at stake. That's what keeps us employed." It's like that's what we do. It's like, so and Frank sort of. What are we calling our segment here, Flobo, in terms of who the best person was? Of the episode?
Above and beyond the Call of Duty.
Wow. Okay, so that rolls off the tongue.
Yeah.
Who do you think went above and beyond the Call of Duty? I said Cadet Tilly. Flobo said Captain Pike. And who do you think?
I mean, I guess you have to say Tilly. I mean, she could have bailed. I agree with what you're saying. Christian, that she could have run at any time. And I feel like if this was any of the other iterations, maybe not Deep Space Nine, but any of the other iterations of Star Trek, the ending where between her, Tilly and May, where they pinky promise, like, I feel like, if we're meant to, we're going to see each other again. That would be something we'd see at the end of one of those episodes, and then it would never be addressed. Maybe picked up in some novel later down the road.
Yeah. You get the feeling, and I did like when she wants to pinky swear, May is like, why are you sticking out your little finger? Or your tiny finger. Hey, this is your tiny finger.
But I feel like this, with the way that they seem to hold on to every little bit, that I think by the end of the season, we're going to see the two of them reconnect.
I do think we will see them again. Yeah, I think that there will be an occasion that basically to save lives or save the entire ship, they're going to have to use the spore drive, and I think that'll be like, May will be like, dude, this is killing us. What are you doing? Why are you back here? I thought we were done. So I do think that'll be an interesting turn of events that we see. What are people saying in the chat before we talk about our non-news news about Picard?
Sure. Stress Free K was mentioning that some people who are haters of Star Trek Discovery or Disco were saying the male character was coming off looking kind of weak, but I think there's more of a balance there, and we all agree that in the chat. And then we're talking about how sexy and forceful the men characters are, whether you're talking about physically in Hugh's case or just the commanding leadership roles.
Hey, Pike is a good-looking gentleman with some gray sprinkled in as they talked, but he's very forceful, So I can see some people being into that. I'm more of a Saru guy, but that's just because I'm into something different.
He was topless last week, right? Yeah.
It's kind of only because of that.
Yikes.
So our other Star Trek news comes from he still has a show. Larry King interviewed the actress who plays Burnham. I will get her first name wrong, but I'll get the other two just right. Sonequa, maybe. Martin Green, and she said that the Picard show will be called Picard. And maybe she wasn't supposed to say that. Maybe it slipped. But as a very clickbaity thing, it's like, oh my God, we're going to get the title. I'm like, what's it going to be? Picard. And it's not even like Picard exclamation point. That would be fun. That would be like, oh, okay, it's going to be a little bit of a space romp.
But what if it had been called Jean-Luc instead? Jean-Luc.
Earl Grey tea.
Then if it's called Jean-Luc, I think it would just be about his journey in finding true love,
and wine tasting throughout the universe.
Yeah, I mean, it would basically be like The Bachelor in space. Jean-Luc is he's going to go on like 30 dates or however that show actually works. I don't know, but and I don't know. I mean, I'm watching the show. I'm actually actively very excited for it. People are obviously desperate for news. Do you think that's what this was, Frank? Like, oh my God, she said it was called Picard. And I mean, those are the words she used. She didn't just refer to it as the Picard show. She said like, yeah, well, it's called Picard. And it's like, well, you're not even on it.
Yeah.
How do you know?
I kind of, man, I don't know. I feel like that's just like it's too easy. I would hope that they wouldn't do that.
But then what do you call it? Do you call it Star Trek Picard?
That's right.
Oh man.
But he's not in Starfleet anymore. And I think you can run with that as much as you want, but I mean, is he in his 70s now? Or
I'd rather call it like the Picard maneuver.
Well, that would go back to whether or not this is him as a Bachelor show.
Yeah, that's right.
It's like, have I shown you the Picard maneuver?
Oh, it is Valentine's Day.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Exactly. So that's another question for you though, Flobo, is that a show that you would check out, not really having the familiarity with Jean-Luc Picard and Star Trek Next Generation?
Yeah.
Because it's a new show, would you check it out?
I would, and it's not even so much about the other universes. When I tell people I'm a fan of Discovery, they go, okay, well, besides that, who's your favorite captain? And it's usually Kirk or Picard. So if those are the two at the top, right? And then the show is based up for one. But you could be a Cisco guy, you could be an Archer guy, but it's always been,
look, and there are Janeway people.
Janeway, for sure.
Because she was a woman, and I think that she wasn't the problem that I had with that show, but I disliked that show so much that I'm like, I could never pick her.
It was UPN, wasn't it? That was the reason why you didn't
it was UPN, yeah. I mean, they had some great shows. They had Star Trek Voyager and The Diary of Desmond Pfeiffer.
Don't forget.
Yeah,
Ty McBride, baby.
Really, that was Ty McBride.
That
was. Exactly. When was the last time somebody mentioned the name of that show out loud? I think it's been a little while. Right. Anyway, so it's good that you're interested in it, to check it out. And, having not watched, I think there were 7 seasons of Next Generation, I think you'd still be able to enjoy it. Now, have you seen any of the movies? Do you have that familiarity?
Yeah, so I've seen, if I go by memory now, Nemesis, Insurrection, and the Star
But have you
Trek.
seen any of the good movies?
I guess not. And the J.J. Abrams first 2. So
the answer is no. No, the first J.J. Abrams, I think, is actually really good.
Yeah. So Pike was way cooler in the TV show than he was in that movie, at least to me. Bruce Greenwood.
Bruce Greenwood.
Kind of a pushover, yeah.
Yeah, no. I like Anson Mount as Pike definitely a lot more. Yeah. Anyway, that is, we are out of time, and I hope we covered everything this episode. I'm really looking forward to a Saru-centric episode next week because I don't know. I just think he's such an interesting character, and I was really upset that he was going to die last week. So I'm just glad he's going to be around. So we will be back next Thursday at 10 Pacific. And obviously, the show you can listen on Spotify, and you can subscribe on Apple Podcasts and all those great places if you don't want to watch it live. But shout out to everybody in the chat. How many people we have in the chat right now?
11 right now.
Look at that.
S3K, Beta Artemis, Reaver, Wyvern. Wow, that's a dragon with legs on it.
People stayed up until almost, it's actually past 2 a.m. East Coast time. So thank you.
Yeah,
everybody who just needed to talk about Star Trek on Valentine's Day. As I said, I've done many times before.
Stay up long and prosper.
Yeah, I like that.
Yes.
Now that we could sell that on a T-shirt.
That's right.
Let's
There you go.
get those out there.
Yeah.
So if you would like to keep in touch with us, Frank, where do people find you?
Find me on Twitter and Instagram at HappyGoJackie. And real quick, folks, first episode of the season, we teased about a potential second animated series coming out for Star Trek. It has been announced that it's going to be on Nickelodeon, folks.
Wow.
So yes, a potential flagship series for Star Trek and Nickelodeon. So let us know in the comments. Do you want to see a Star Trek series on Nickelodeon?
Well, by the way, the original animated series, that's where I watched it. They aired it on Nickelodeon, I don't know, 25, 30 years ago. That's how I saw it, because that's where it was.
Wow.
And Flobo, where do people keep in touch with you?
I'm on Twitter at Flobo Boyce, on Instagram at Flobito, and at Flobito, FLOBITO.com.
And you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at ChristianDMZ. Thursday afternoons at 1 Pacific over on our sister network, Popcorn Talk, I do Marvel movie news. Sunday nights, I do Marvel TV news here on AfterBuzz at 9 Pacific. And there's some other stuff too, but Star Trek and Marvel, let's just keep it there. That's the important stuff. Anyway, thanks so much to everyone who joined us tonight, and we will see you next week. Until then, live long and prosper.
#Janeway.
Our founder, Kevin Undergaro, and me, Maria Menounos, would like to thank you for tuning in to AfterBuzz TV. Remember, we're not just the first, we're the biggest in the world, and we're the only destination for all your favorite TV shows. Whatever you crave, we've got it. So go to AfterBuzzTV